Do you hear me well? Good. Yes, so this is a joint work with Fedor Fomin, Daniel Lokshonov, Daniel Marks, Marcin Pilipczyk, and Saket Saurab. So I guess that for many of you, maybe some of the words in the title are still a little bit mystical. But I will try during this talk to give more like a background of what we are doing and talk a little bit about our main result and our proofs. To rather give you the intuition why we are asking certain questions and why we are looking at certain combinatorial objects. So let me start the story with the classic grid-minor theorem that basically philosophically states that the only reason why a graph does not look roughly like a tree is that because it has a large bidimensional structure embedded into it. More precisely, there is a function f such that if the tree width of the graph is at least f of k, where the tree width is the standard measure of tree likeness of a graph, then this already implies that there is a large k times k grid minor embedded in our graph, where grid minor is a structure like this, where each of these blobs is just a connected set of vertices. So this was proven first by Robertson Seymour in the graph minor series. So the first proof did not give any sensible upper bound on the function f. There was a long struggle to get this f to reasonable levels. Recently, there was a breakthrough a few years ago. So currently, I think that we have a polynomial upper bound. Currently, best, I think, k to the 19 due to Julia last year. We cannot expect in general to have a linear dependence on the size of the grid minor, as there is a k square log k lower bound. However, if we assume something more about the graph, for example, it is somehow topologically constrained. It is, for example, from some class that excludes some fixed graph as a minor, then we actually have a linear bound. More precisely, if you assume that the graph is planar, then already having true with at least roughly 4.5k forces the existence of a k times k grid minor, and more generally, if we exclude some graph h as a minor, then already having linear true width implies the existence of a large grid minor. Yes? So this is a nice combinatorial theorem. Let's see some algorithmic application of it. And this is the classic technique of bidimensionality that was introduced by Demain et al. In 2004. By now, this is a standard technique in parameterized complexity. So let's focus on some example problem, the K-path problem. I'm giving a graph, a planar graph, and I'm asking whether there is a simple path on k vertices. So this means that a path that visits every vertex at most once. Of course, this is NP-hard because it generates the Hamiltonian path problem. It is NP-hard also in the planar setting. So now I will give you an algorithm for this problem on planar graph that achieves this funny-looking running time 2 to the roughly square root k times linear in the size of the graph. So I will need the following two ingredients. First, k-path can be solved efficiently on graphs of bounded tree width. So there is an algorithm working at roughly 2 to the w times linear in the size of the graph, where w is the width of the decomposition I'm giving on the input. This is not the standard dynamic programming that you would write on the first glance. You need a little bit more tricks to get single exponential. The standard is w log w. And the second fact is that if I know that there is a square root k times square root k grid minor in my graph, then I am sure that there is a k-path. And for the proof of this fact, I refer you to the picture. Yes? So given these two facts, given these two ingredients, I can write a very simple algorithm for k-path achieving this running time. So the algorithm does the following. First, I approximate true width using any of the known algorithms for this approximation. Then if it turns out that the true width is large, then I'm sure, roughly 100 square root k, then I'm sure that there is square root k times square root k grid minor, and I can say, yes, there is a k-path. Otherwise, I have in my hand a tree decomposition of the graph of width roughly square root k. So I can apply my dynamic programming on bounded width tree decomposition to solve my problem in this running time. Right? So this was a very elegant win-win approach. Yes? And it solved the problem really quickly. However, it is pretty clear that this argument was very, very delicate. Namely, this assumption that having a large grid minor in my graph already tells me that I can finish my algorithm and say a clear yes to the problem. This was very strong. And also, it is not robust under any generalizations of this problem. So let's see, for example, the directed k-path problem, where I'm given a directed planar graph, and I'm looking for a directed path of length at least k. Yes, of length k. Yes, then having a large grid minor in the underlying undirected graph of my graph basically tells me nothing about the existence of a directed k-path because I do not control the directions. Similarly, when I'm, for example, looking for a k-path of largest weight in a vertex-weighted planar graph. Yeah, because then having any grid minor doesn't tell me maybe the heaviest k-path is somewhere completely else. Yes? So for such problems, there was a large discrepancy between what we know and what we expect. Namely, there was a question whether for such problems, for such generalization, I can also achieve running times of the form 2 to the roughly square root k, maybe losing some polylogs, times some fixed polynomial independent of k. Yes? So before this work that I'm now presenting, we knew basically no algorithm better than the ones inherited from general graphs where there was a single exponential dependence on k. Yes? So let us try to more formalize what do I mean by such problems. So let a k pattern in a graph be simply a connected set of vertices, a set of vertices that induces a connected subgraph that has size at most k. So what I'm looking for is a k pattern that has some prescribed property. Yes, for example, it is a k path. Yes, so the idea how we try to solve this problem is I want to find this k pattern is very small. It is hidden somewhere in the graph, and as a planar graph on k vertices, it has 3 at most square root k. Yeah, so it is really thin. So what I will try to do, I will try to cover my graph with a small family of subsets such that every k pattern will be covered by some subset, and then I will try to efficiently find these patterns by dynamic programming on the subset. So this was very rough and imprecise. So let me now state formally what we prove in this paper. So the setting is as follows. Suppose I have a graph on n vertices, a planar graph, and I have some positive integer k, which is a parameter, and I'm looking for k patterns, patterns of size k. Yes? Then I claim that I can find a family f of subsets of the vertex set with the following properties. First of all, the family is pretty small. It has this sub-exponential parameterized size, 2 to the roughly square root k times a fixed polynomial. Second, every guy from my family is thin. It induces a graph of 3 of roughly square root k. And third and more importantly, wherever I have a k pattern hidden in my graph, yes, I can find an element of my family that completely covers it. Yes? And moreover, this theorem is efficient in the sense that I can construct this family in randomized sub-exponential parameterized time. Yes, so a running time like this I will call sub-exponential parameterized. Yes? So note that even the existence of such a family is a non-trivial combinatorial fact. Yes? So now given this theorem, the algorithm for directed k-path problem on planar graphs is pretty simple. I just construct this family f, and then for every element of my family f, I look at the induced graph. It has small tree width, and I just try to find a directed k-path using dynamic programming. And this property C gives me the correctness of the algorithm, namely if there is a k-path, then at least one of my elements of my family will cover it. Yes? So the running time now is as follows. I browse through this many elements of my cover family. For each, I run dynamic programming with this running time, so I achieve this sub-exponential parameterized time. So note that here I did not really use any specific property of the directed k-path problem. This can be applied to many more to a range of pattern searching problems where I'm looking for a small k pattern with some property. For example, for looking for directed k-path of largest weight. Yes. For example, if I look for a cycle of length exactly k, maybe directed, maybe largest weight. Also to some more exotic problem, for example, k-local search for vertex cover on planar graphs. So the setting is as follows. You have a planar graph with some vertex cover highlighted there, and you want to check whether you can find a smaller vertex cover by removing k vertices from your solution and adding k minus 1. Yes? And you can prove that if there is such an improvement step, then there is also an improvement step that induces a connected subgraph, and this can be formulated as searching for a connected k pattern. And then for such k-local search for planar vertex cover, we also can achieve running time to the roughly square root k times a fixed polynomial. Yes? So basically what you need for this machinery to work is an efficient algorithm that solves the problem on bounded tree with graphs. So let's try to be a little bit more ambitious and look at a more general problem of subgraph isomorphism. I'm giving a large host graph G, yes, which is planar, and a small pattern graph H of size at most k. And I ask simply whether H is a subgraph of G. Yes? So by applying our whole machinery, we can prove that this problem can be solved also in the sub-exponential parameterized time whenever the pattern graph is connected, yes, because we can look for connected k patterns. And moreover, we need to bound the maximum degree of the graph by a constant. Yes? And when we do not have this max degree bound, actually what blows up is this dynamic programming. Yes, there is a problem in this dynamic programming, and then we can rescue still an algorithm using with running time roughly 2 to the order of k over log k. So we shave off this log k from the running time using some techniques that were done by Bodlander et al. This year at ICAP. And interestingly, it turns out that without this max degree bound, this running time is optimal under ETH. Yes? So we achieve actually here a complete charting of the complexity of subgraph isomorphism for planar graphs. Whenever we do not have a max degree bound, this is achievable and is optimal under ETH. However, if we moreover assume that the maximum degree is bounded by a constant, then we can achieve 2 to the roughly square root k, which is also optimum under ETH. Yeah, so this is not the answer that I would expect at the first glance from this about this problem. Okay, so now what I will try to do in the rest of the proof is, in the rest of the talk, is to give you some ideas about the proof of this theorem. Yes, but before we are going to the proof of the theorem, I will look at one specific example graph, which is k times k grid, and I will show you how to construct such a covering family for this example. Yes, so you might ask why k times k grid and not n times n grid, so arbitrarily large. This is because I can always guess one vertex of the pattern and somehow localize. Look out only at the ball of radius k around it, because the whole pattern will be then in the ball of size k, of radius k. And therefore, I can basically assume from the beginning that the radius of my graph is roughly k. Yeah. So the idea is to apply sort of Baker-like technique. So let me enumerate the rows of this grid modulo square root k by Remainers modulo square root k, and therefore there is an index modulo square root k by pigeonhole principle, where in the corresponding rows there are only square root k vertices of the pattern, right? Because the whole pattern has k vertices in total. Yeah. So let me guess this index. Yeah. So assume that there is some hidden pattern somewhere there. Yeah. So I guess this index. So I know that in this row there are only at most square root k guys in total from the pattern. So therefore, let me guess now the columns in which these guys lie. Yeah, there are square root k of them, so this amounts to k choose square root k options. Yes, for guessing the columns. So now, having these guesses, I can remove everything from these rows apart from these columns. Yes, because I know that whatever is from the pattern in these rows lies in these columns. Yes. And now the remaining graph is easy seen to have square root k through it, because I can sweep it from top to bottom while keeping 2 of these rows at a time, and while I'm keeping two of them at a time, I can sweep the consecutive part here from left to right because it has width square root k. Yes? So basically in total I get square root k times k choose square root k options, which amounts to this. So more formally, for each of the possible guesses, I end up with one graph like this, which has square root k through it. And basically, for each guess, I produce a new graph, and this amounts to my family at the end. Yes, and I have a guarantee that whatever pattern is there hidden in the graph, for one of the guesses, I will not remove anything from the pattern. Yes. So yeah, so this already gives us a hint on about what kind of tools we will need in the proof. So this will be basically like Baker-like specification. Yeah. So in the next, so what I will try to do now is I will give you some glimpse into the techniques of that are used in the proof. So this will be very rough and very imprecise and very fuzzy what I will be trying to do, because basically in the next 3 slides, during the next 3 minutes, I will try to squeeze 30 pages of a technical proof, which I guess is a quintessence of a conference talk. Yeah, and so basically what we are doing, yes, is the whole algorithm is randomized. So actually the statement that we are proving is that there is a polynomial time algorithm that samples this subset A that has small tree width, so that achieves a good probability of covering the pattern. Yes, and the idea for the proof is to somehow look at the recursive algorithm, approximation algorithm for constructing a tree decomposition of the graph that tries to construct a decomposition of width roughly square root k. Of course, the algorithm can get stuck because the tree width may be larger, and then when it will get stuck, we will have some obstacle, and we will try to sparsify using Baker-like techniques. Yes. So the state of the algorithm is that I have some part of the graph that I wish to decompose more, and I have some bounded number of terminals on the outer face, and I have somehow the pattern that is now disconnected hangs from the terminals to the inside of the graph. The main observation is that everything would be trivial if the whole pattern was within the square root k margin around the outer face, because then we could just clean whatever is in the middle. We would end up with this ring of width square root k, which has tree width roughly square root k. Yes? However, this is not necessarily the case, and we show that otherwise there are 3 possibilities. Either we can find sort of a balanced separator of the graph, or then otherwise we can locate somehow using randomized guessing some vertex of the graph, and then we have 2 possibilities. Either we find many concentric separators separating this vertex from the outer face, or we can find many almost disjoint paths that connect this vertex from the outer face. Yes? So then what we do in this situations? If we get a balanced separator, basically we can split as usual, and the progress is achieved because we are splitting both the pattern and the size of the graph. If we find many concentric separators, we do like Baker. So we guess a separator that only interacts a small little with the pattern, and then we can split into inside and the outside. Yes, and we again split the pattern in a balanced way. And if we find a nearly disjoint path, this is actually funny. So what we are doing, we are guessing one of these paths that does not intersect the pattern, and then we can contract along it, thus dragging a significant part of the pattern into this margin. And this is also a progress because the problem becomes trivial if everything is in the margin. Yes, so basically what you are doing, you are looking at this kind of progresses. Yes, you are expressing them as 3 potential functions. You are pushing these 3 potential functions through the recursion, trying to bound the success probability. So let me, at the end, tell a little bit about more about generalizations of our results. So basically, in our proof, we only need 2 properties of the graph class that we are looking at. Namely, first that it is minor closed. Yes, and second that it has locally bounded tree width, namely the tree width of our graph is bounded by a function of its radius. So these 2 properties are exactly being apex minor free, and therefore the whole our proof works in the apex minor free setting. Yes, we actually do not use planar in the proof, the word planar. Yes, so we can also generalize to general H minor free graphs. However, we need to assume that the pattern that we are looking for has bounded maximum degree. And this is because we are pushing this thing through the Robertson-Seymour decomposition, and then the apices can spoil our analysis. Yes. So what remains open here is first handling disconnected patterns. We rely on connectedness in many places of our algorithm, but we do not see any obstacle for proving the same statement for disconnected patterns, and extending the technique to H minor free graphs. Actually, we think that these 2 problems are the same problem in a sense. So to conclude, so our contribution is basically a new technique for getting sub-exponential parameterized algorithm on planar graphs and beyond. Yes, that can be applied for problems that can be expressed like searching for a small connected pattern in a large topologically constrained graph. And the technique seems to be more robust and more generalizable than bidimensionality. So a little bit about future work. So it seems that if the problem has, if the graph has polynomial growth, namely both are bounded polynomial in the radius, then a very similar tool can be given, and also but the analysis is much simpler. So this is ongoing work by Marks and Pilipchuk. This is actually not me. This is my brother. So the main open questions that remain is first the randomization of the technique. We do not know how to de-randomize it, and also extending to the disconnected patterns to H-3 graphs, and there are more open problems in the paper. Yeah. So thanks for your attention. Sorry, what's the problem in the general graph? What's the challenge? So basically, the whole thing does not hold. Meaning, if you say start with a click, yes, then you have n to the k connected patterns, being just all possible subsets of vertices, yes. And I guess that there should be some simple argument saying that there is no FPT size family that covers all of them that achieves small tree width. Yeah. Meaning the theorem as stated like here cannot hold for general graphs. Yes? So bounded genus is apex minor 3. So this holds for bounded genus. I don't know how to do it even on the grid. So this probably would be the first thing to look at. So this O tilde in our, it actually we are losing log k 2 times. So we have square root k times log square k. So there is space for improvement there. I don't know whether it's possible or not. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, so for disconnected H, we cannot say anything. Yes. Yeah, our technique doesn't yield anything for disconnected H. Yeah. Yeah. So actually, we can do something. We can handle patterns H with at most square root k connected components. But beyond this, we do not.